carefully, because what you are about to hear is not ordinary encouragement, not a casual message, and not something meant for the crowd in general. This moment is personal. This moment is intentional. This moment is urgent. If your ears are open to these words right now, then understand something with absolute clarity. This is your March 12th, 13th, 14th emergency update. This is a spiritual alert meant for your soul. God is calling your attention. God is awakening something inside you that may have been sleeping, buried under worry, disappointment, fear, and exhaustion. There are moments in life when time feels ordinary, when days pass like pages turning quietly in a book. But then there are moments when heaven sends an interruption, an urgent reminder that God has not forgotten you, that God has been watching your struggle, hearing your prayers, and preparing something that your human eyes cannot yet see. And today, right now, is one of those moments. Some of you listening have been carrying burdens that nobody else understands. You smile in public, you speak with strength, but deep inside you have been wrestling with silent battles. There are nights when your thoughts become heavy, when questions echo in your heart. You have asked God, where are you in this moment? Do you see what I'm going through? Do you know how tired I am? And God has heard every single whisper of your heart. Nothing escapes the awareness of not your tears, not your fears, not the quiet prayers you speak when nobody else is around. God has been present through every chapter, even the ones that felt dark and confusing. And this emergency update is a reminder that the story is not over. What you thought was the end of your strength may actually be the beginning of God's intervention. The days of March 12th, 13th, and 14th are not just numbers on a calendar. They are a reminder that time itself moves under the authority of God. Wow. The world rushes forward distracted. God sees moments that carry meaning beyond human understanding. God sees turning points long before we recognize them. There are seasons when God allows challenges to shape your spirit, to refine your patience, to strengthen your faith, and to prepare your heart for what lies ahead. Sometimes you think you are simply surviving, but God knows you are being transformed. Sometimes you think your prayers are disappearing into silence, but God knows they are. Building a bridge toward a breakthrough. Right now, someone listening feels like they have been standing in a long hallway of waiting. Doors have been closed. Opportunities have disappeared. People you trusted have walked away. Plans you carefully built have fallen apart. And it has left you wondering whether your efforts mattered, whether your faith was misplaced, whether the future you dreamed about will ever come to life. But hear this with absolute certainty. God does not waste your time. God does not ignore your patience. Every delay, every disappointment, every moment when you thought you were losing God was shaping something greater within you. Sometimes God must strengthen your character before opening your next door. Sometimes God must remove distractions before revealing your direction. This emergency update is a spiritual awakening. It is a reminder that God's timing operates on a higher level than human expectations. You may measure time in days, weeks, or to purpose. And when the moment is right, God can change circumstances faster than you ever imagined. The same situation that looked impossible yesterday can suddenly shift tomorrow because God has decided that the season of waiting has completed its work. God can open a path where there was once a wall. God can restore hope where there was once despair. God can bring clarity where confusion once lived. There are people listening right now who feel exhausted to carry everything alone. You have been trying to solve every problem through your own strength, your own logic, your own endless effort. But God never asked you to carry the entire weight of life by yourself. God invites you to trust, to release the pressure, to remember that divine power is greater than human effort. Faith is not passive weakness, faith is courageous trust. Faith is the decision to believe that even when you cannot see the entire road, God already knows the March 12th, 13th, and 14th serve as a reminder that life can shift suddenly when God moves. You may wake up expecting another ordinary day, but God can introduce extraordinary change without warning. A door can open that you never knew existed. A conversation can bring opportunity you never expected. A moment of clarity can remove confusion that has lingered for years. God does not need dramatic announcements to transform your life. Sometimes the greatest miracles happen quietly. Step by step, guiding you toward a future you could not design alone. But there is something important you must understand during this emergency update. Transformation begins inside your heart before it appears in your circumstances. God works from the inside out. Submission to your path, If your heart is filled with doubt, fear, and constant negativity, it becomes difficult to recognize the guidance God is placing in your path. But when you allow faith to rise within you, when you remind yourself that
God is in control, your perspective begins to change. Suddenly you see possibility where you once saw defeat. Suddenly you recognize opportunity where you once saw obstacles. God is not distant from your life. God is actively aware of every detail. The breath you take right now is evidence of divine mercy. The strength you have to continue moving forward, even after everything you have faced, is evidence that God has been sustaining you all along. Think about the moments when you thought you could not go any further, yet somehow you found the courage to stand again. That strength did not come from nowhere. That strength came from God's presence surrounding your life. Some of you have been asking God for answers, for direction, for a sign that you are not walking this path alone. Consider this message your reminder. Consider this moment your awakening. God is reminding you that your life has purpose beyond your current struggles. You are not created simply to endure endless hardship. Were created with meaning, with potential, with the ability to influence the world around you in ways you may not yet realize. God sees your future with clarity, even when your present feels uncertain. There will always be voices in the world that try to fill your mind with fear. They will say the economy is unstable, opportunities are limited, the world is unpredictable. They will remind you of every risk, every danger, every possible failure. But the voice of fear is not the voice of God. Message is not designed to weaken your spirit. God's message strengthens your faith and reminds you that the creator of the universe has authority over every circumstance. When you remember who God is, your fear begins to shrink. God is the one who shapes destiny beyond human control. God is the one who turns impossible situations into testimonies of hope. God is the one who guides the lost, strengthens the weak, and restores the broken. When you align your heart with God, you step into a perspective on life. You stop seeing yourself as powerless. You begin to see yourself as guided. But guidance requires attention. One of the greatest challenges of the modern world is distraction. People fill their days with noise, endless information, constant movement. They rarely pause long enough to listen to the quiet wisdom that God places in their hearts. Yet the most powerful guidance often arrives in stillness. When you slow down and reflect, when you pray and reconnect with, He begins to emerge. During these days, March 12th, 13th, and 14th, take a moment to step away from the chaos around you. Reflect on where you have been and where you believe God is leading you. Ask yourself whether you have allowed fear to control your decisions or whether you have trusted the path God is shaping for you. Your future will not be determined solely by circumstances. It will be shaped by the direction of your faith. You may not control every situation in life, but you can control how you respond. You can choose courage instead of fear. You can choose hope instead of despair. You can choose faith instead of doubt. Every choice you make moves your life in a certain direction. When your choices are guided by trust in God, you begin walking toward possibilities that once seemed unreachable. Remember something powerful: your past does not define your future. Mistakes do not cancel God's plan. Failures do not erase your purpose. God is capable of rewriting chapters permanently closed. There are people who once believed their lives were finished only to discover that God was preparing them for their greatest impact. You may look back on your past and see moments you wish you could change. But God sees those same moments as lessons, preparation, and growth. What you once considered weakness may become the source of your greatest wisdom. What you once considered loss may become the doorway to a new direction. As this emergency update reaches you, understand that it carries a message of awakening. God is calling you to rise above the weight of discouragement and step into renewed faith. The future is not controlled by fear. The future is guided by God's wisdom, and your role is to trust that guidance even when the road ahead is not fully visible. Your journey is not random. Your struggles are not meaningless. Your prayers are not ignored. God is working behind scenes you cannot see, aligning moments and opportunities in ways that human understanding cannot predict. What feels like delay today may become the perfect timing tomorrow, and when the right moment arrives, you will look back at this season and realize that God was preparing you all along. The patience you developed will become your strength. The humility you learned will become your wisdom. The faith you practiced during uncertainty will become your foundation for future victories. So stand strong in this moment. Lift your spirit beyond the noise of doubt. Remember who guides your life. Remember who gives you breath, purpose, and direction. God has not abandoned your story. God has not forgotten your dreams. God has not ignored your prayers. This March 12th, 13th, 14th emergency update is not a warning of fear. It is a call to awakening. It is a reminder that God is still writing your story, still guiding your steps, still opening doors that no one else can close. Trust that guidance. Strengthen your faith. Move forward with courage. Because when God sees that your moment has arrived, nothing in this world can stop the future that God has prepared for you. And now the urgency deepens. This is not a moment to drift back into routine thinking. This is not a time to return to the same doubts that have held you back for years. This is a moment of spiritual alertness. Something within you is being awakened because God is reminding you that your life is not meant to move in circles of fear and hesitation. Your life was designed to move forward with purpose, clarity, and unwavering trust in the one who created you. When God calls your attention, it is never meaningless. When God stirs your spirit, it is because something important is unfolding in your journey, something that requires your awareness, your courage, and your renewed faith. Many people live their lives reacting to circumstances, allowing every problem to define their mood, every obstacle to weaken their resolve, and every criticism to shake their confidence. But those who start to learn a deeper truth, circumstances do not control destiny when faith guides the heart. Storms may come, confusion may arise, and the path may sometimes feel uncertain, but God remains constant when everything else shifts. When you anchor your life in that truth, you stop being controlled by temporary setbacks. You begin to walk with a steady spirit, knowing that even when you cannot see the outcome, God already knows the conclusion of your story. There are moments when God beneath you to shake, not to destroy you, but to wake you up. Comfort can sometimes become a prison. Familiar routines can slowly drain the fire from your spirit. You may have been moving through life on autopilot, repeating the same patterns, accepting limitations that God never intended for you to accept. And suddenly something changes. A challenge appears. A door closes. In that moment it feels painful, confusing, even unfair. But what you do not yet realize is that God may be shaking you awake from a life that was becoming too small for the purpose placed inside you. You must understand that God does not measure your life the way the world measures it. The world looks at titles, wealth, recognition, and applause. The world celebrates those who gather attention and influence. But God looks deeper. God looks at the condition of your heart. God sees your integrity when no one else is watching. God sees the kindness you show when there is to gain. God sees the patience you demonstrate when life becomes difficult. Those quiet moments of character are not invisible to God. They are the foundation of the future God is preparing for you. Some people believe that divine help only appears in dramatic miracles, but often God's guidance arrives through subtle shifts, through quiet opportunities, through moments of clarity that change the direction of your thinking. A single idea can alter the course of your future. A single conversation can unlock a door that leads to a completely new chapter. A single decision made with faith can move you closer to a destiny that once seemed impossible. Never underestimate how powerfully God can work through small beginnings. There is someone listening right now who feels like life has slowed down in a way that feels frustrating. You look around and see others advancing, achieving, moving ahead, while you feel stuck in a season that refuses to change. It feels like you are watching life from the sidelines while everyone else runs the race. But what you cannot see is that God often uses quiet seasons to prepare strong foundations. Growth that happens in silence often becomes strength that lasts a lifetime. God may be building patience in you that will protect you later. God may be building wisdom in you that will guide you when greater responsibility arrives. Never assume that stillness means abandonment. Never assume that waiting means rejection. Sometimes waiting is simply preparation happening beneath the surface. A seed buried in the ground looks invisible for a long time, yet beneath the soil roots are forming, strength is developing. Life is gathering momentum in ways the human eye cannot see. When the moment of growth arrives, that seed suddenly breaks through the surface, and what once looked empty becomes alive with new possibility. Your life can work the same way under the guidance of God. Faith requires you to trust the process even when you Can't see the full picture. It requires you to keep walking even when the path disappears into fog. But the one who walks with trust eventually discovers that God never leads without purpose. Even detours can become part of the journey that shapes your destiny. Even the wrong turns you regret can be redirected into lessons that strengthen your wisdom. There are people who spend years blaming themselves for mistakes, replaying old regrets in their minds as if their past failures have permanently disqualified them. But understand this clearly: God is greater than your past. Your mistakes may have been real, but they do not hold the final authority over your life. God can transform your failures into foundations for growth. God can turn your wounds into wisdom that helps others. When you truly understand the mercy and power of God, you stop seeing yourself as permanently broken and begin seeing yourself as a person who is still being shaped. Sometimes the greatest obstacle in your life is
not the challenge in front of you, but the voice inside you that whispers defeat before you even try. That voice tells you that you are not capable, not prepared, not worthy of something greater.
But that voice does not come from faith. That voice comes from fear. And fear loses its power the moment you remember who is guiding your life. God did not create you to live under the shadow of constant doubt. God created you with the ability to rise, to learn, to grow, and to influence the world around. With goodness and strength, every day you wake up is another opportunity to align your heart with that purpose. Every breath you take is a reminder that your story is still being written. During these days of reflection and awareness, consider the possibility that God is preparing you for a shift in perspective. Perhaps the situation that once felt like an obstacle is actually a signal pointing you toward a different direction. Perhaps the delay that frustrated you is protecting you from something that would have harmed your future. God's wisdom operates far beyond human calculation. There is a profound peace that enters the heart of a person who truly trusts God. It is not the absence of challenges, but the confidence that those challenges are not stronger than the guidance of God. When you carry that peace within you, you move through life differently. You stop reacting with panic to every difficulty. You begin responding with patience and faith. People will notice, they will see a steadiness in you that they cannot explain. They will see courage in moments when others feel overwhelmed. They will wonder how you remain hopeful when circumstances seem uncertain. And the answer will be simple. Your hope does not come from circumstances. It comes from trusting God. Remember that faith is not simply believing that good things might happen. Faith is believing that God remains wise and powerful even when life becomes complicated. Faith means to let temporary confusion destroy your long-term trust. Faith means standing firm when everything around you tries to shake your confidence. There will always be voices trying to convince you that faith is unrealistic, that hope is naive, that trust in God is outdated. But those voices forget something important. Human history is filled with people who achieved the impossible because they trusted something greater than themselves. Faith has always been the fuel behind courage, perseverance, and transformation. Your life has the potential to become a testimony of what happens when someone refuses to surrender to despair. Every time you choose patience instead of anger, you demonstrate the strength God has placed within you. Every time you choose kindness instead of bitterness, you reflect the wisdom God encourages in the human heart. Every time you choose faith instead of fear, you step closer to the future God is guiding you toward. And understand this powerful truth. God's plan for your life is not limited by the opinions of others. People may doubt you, misunderstand you, underestimate you, or walk away from you. But none of those actions can cancel the purpose God has placed within you. Your destiny is not determined by human approval. It is shaped by your relationship with the one who created you. There may come a day when the very people who doubted you look at your life with amazement. They will see the strength you developed through struggle, the wisdom you gained through patience, and the peace you carry through faith. They will wonder how such transformation happened. And the answer will remain the same. God was guiding every step. As this message continues to unfold in your heart, allow yourself to release the weight you have been carrying unnecessarily. You do not need to control every outcome. You do not need to solve every mystery of the future. Your responsibility is much simpler, yet much more powerful. Trust God, act with integrity, and move forward with faith. The future remains full of possibilities that you cannot yet see. Opportunities are forming, connections are aligning, and moments of clarity are approaching. God knows exactly how to guide you toward the next chapter of your journey. What seems uncertain today may soon reveal itself as part of a greater design.
So stand strong. Strengthen your spirit.
Guard your thoughts from negativity and fill your heart with remembrance of God's greatness. When fear whispers that the road ahead is too difficult, remind yourself that the one guiding you is greater than every obstacle. When doubt tries to weaken your resolve, remind yourself that God has carried you through challenges before and will carry you again. This moment is not random. Your presence here is not accidental. Something within your spirit was meant to hear these words, meant to remember that hope is still alive, that purpose is still unfolding, and that God is still guiding your life with wisdom beyond human understanding. Hold firmly to that truth. Let it become the foundation of your confidence and the fuel for your perseverance, because the journey ahead may challenge you, but it will also reveal the strength, resilience, and faith that God has been building inside you all along. And as this message continues to reach deeper into your heart, there is another truth that must be spoken with clarity and conviction. There are moments when God calls a person into awareness because he's approaching. Not every shift is loud. Not every change announces itself with obvious signs. Sometimes God prepares transformation quietly beneath the surface of everyday life, while the world continues moving as if nothing is happening. But inside the spirit of a person who listens, there is a stirring, a realization that something meaningful is unfolding. That is the purpose of this urgent message. It is not meant to create fear, but to awaken attention. God is reminding you to become spiritually alert, to stop drifting through life unconsciously, and to recognize that every moment carries meaning when your heart is aligned with divine guidance. You must understand something powerful about the way God shapes human lives. God does not rush without wisdom, and God does not delay without purpose. When you look back over your journey, you may notice periods that once felt confusing or painful. You may remember seasons when doors closed unexpectedly, when plans fell apart, when relationships shifted, and when the future seemed uncertain. In those moments, it was easy to believe that life was simply unpredictable or unfair. But when faith matures, you begin to see those seasons differently. You begin to recognize that God was guiding you away from paths that would not have served your future. What looked like rejection may have been protection. What felt like delay may have been preparation. There is a deep wisdom in trusting God even when the path feels unfamiliar. Human understanding often demands immediate answers. People want to know why things happen, when problems will end, and how the future will unfold. But faith invites a different kind of strength. Faith invites you to walk forward even when the entire map is not visible. Faith reminds you that the one who created the universe is not confused about your journey. God sees the beginning, the middle, and the ending all at once. What feels uncertain to you is already clear to God. Many people lose because they measure their lives by the speed of visible progress. They compare themselves with others. They look at someone else's success, someone else's achievements, someone else's opportunities, and they begin to question their own worth or direction. That comparison is one of the greatest thieves of peace. God never designed your path to be identical to anyone else's. Your experiences, your lessons, your timing, and your purpose are unique. When you constantly measure your life against the progress of others, you distract yourself from the guidance that God is giving specifically to you. Instead of looking sideways at the lives of others, lift your vision upward toward the wisdom of God. When you focus on divine guidance rather than human comparison, you begin to see your life differently. You realize that even your struggles carry meaning. You understand that your patience is shaping your strength. You recognize that every difficulty has the potential to deepen your character. Strengthen your connection with God. There are people listening to this message who have felt the weight of discouragement pressing heavily on their hearts. Perhaps you have prayed many times asking God for change, asking for relief, asking for direction. And sometimes the silence that follows prayer can feel difficult to understand, but silence does not mean absence. Silence does not mean God has turned away. Often silence simply means that the process is still unfolding. God works through experience and through circumstances that gradually shape the outcome. Consider the wisdom of a farmer who plants seeds into the soil. After planting, the ground looks unchanged. Day after day, the field appears quiet and empty. But beneath the surface, life is developing in ways that cannot yet be seen. Roots are spreading, strength is forming, and growth is preparing to rise. If the farmer lost patience and dug up the seeds too early, the harvest would never come. In the same way, impatience can sometimes prevent people from seeing the beautiful outcomes that God is preparing. Patience is not weakness. Patience is strength under control. Patience is the ability to trust God even when your emotions urge you to panic. It is the quiet confidence that divine wisdom is still guiding the journey even when progress seems slow. Those who develop patience often discover that their endurance leads them to blessings that would have been impossible without the lessons learned along the way. Another truth must also be understood clearly. Sometimes the greatest transformation God wants to create in your life begins not with changing your circumstances, but with changing your mindset. The way you think influences the way you see the world. If your thoughts are constantly filled with fear, resentment, and hopelessness, then even good opportunities may appear negative or threatening. But when your thoughts are aligned with trust in God, you begin to see possibility. Even in situations that once seemed discouraging. Renewing your mindset requires discipline. It requires choosing what you allow into your mind and heart. Every day the world offers countless voices, opinions, and messages that compete for your attention. Some of those messages encourage fear, division, and negativity. But the wisdom that leads to peace comes from remembering God's greatness and allowing that remembrance to guide your thinking. When you begin your day acknowledging the presence, authority of God, your perspective shifts. Problems that once seemed overwhelming begin to appear manageable. Confusion begins to clear. Anxiety begins to loosen its grip. This does not mean challenges disappear instantly, but it means you face them with a different spirit, a spirit grounded in faith rather than fear. Faith transforms the way you respond to life's difficulties. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin asking, what can I learn from this experience? Instead, this situation is impossible. You begin saying, God is capable of guiding me through this. That shift in thinking may seem small, but it has tremendous power. It moves your focus from helplessness toward possibility. Remember that God has given human beings the remarkable ability to grow. Your character is not fixed. Your wisdom can expand. Your understanding can deepen. Every challenge carries the potential to make you stronger if you approach it with humility and trust. Even the most painful experiences can eventually become sources of insight that guide your future decisions. There is also something important about gratitude that many people overlook. Gratitude does not mean pretending that life is perfect. It means recognizing the blessings that still exist even when difficulties appear. When you pause to appreciate the breath in your lungs, the strength in your body, the people who care about you, and the opportunities that still lie ahead, you remind yourself that God's generosity surrounds your life in countless ways. Gratitude softens the heart and strengthens faith. It shifts your focus from what is missing to what is already present. And when your heart becomes grateful, your spirit becomes more open to the guidance that God offers. It is also important to remember that every person carries influence whether they realize it or not. The way you speak, the way you treat others, and the way you handle adversity can impact the lives of people around you. Someone may be watching how you respond to hardship. Someone may be drawing courage from the patience they see in you. When you live with integrity and faith, your life becomes a quiet example of the strength that comes from trust in God. This means that your journey is not only about your own success or happiness, it is also about the impact your faith can have on others. A kind word, a moment of encouragement, a gesture of compassion can sometimes change the direction of another person's life. Often those small acts become part of a larger purpose that only God fully understands. Never underestimate the ripple effect of goodness. When you choose honesty instead of deception, patience instead of anger, generosity instead of selfishness, you are participating in a pattern of goodness that God encourages within humanity. Those choices create waves that extend far beyond what you can see. There will be moments in life when doing the right thing feels difficult. There will be situations where the easier path appears tempting, but integrity guided by faith always leads to deeper peace than shortcuts driven by fear or greed. God's wisdom encourages people to walk the path of honesty and patience because that path ultimately strengthens the soul. As this urgent message continues to echo within your spirit, allow it to become a reminder of your connection with God. Your life is not drifting aimlessly through time. Your existence carries meaning. Your experiences are turning you into someone capable of growth, compassion, and resilience. Look at how far you have already come. Think about the challenges you once believed you could never survive. Yet here you are, still breathing, still standing, still capable of hope. That endurance is not accidental. God has been sustaining you through every chapter. And if God has carried you through past struggles, there is no reason to believe that your future will be abandoned. The same divine wisdom that guided you, continue guiding you ahead. The same mercy that lifted you from previous difficulties will remain present in the days to come. So lift your heart with confidence. Let your thoughts rise above despair. Remember that your journey continues under the watchful wisdom of God. Even when you cannot see the next step clearly, trust that guidance is present. The world may change, circumstances may shift, and challenges may appear unexpectedly. But the foundation of faith remains steady. Wisdom does not weaken with time. God's mercy does not run out. God's power does not diminish. And as long as you continue walking with humility, patience, and trust, your life will continue moving toward the purpose that God has prepared for you, step by step, moment by moment, guided by a wisdom greater than anything this world can offer.